University. So my presentation now is entitled Voice, Visibility and Veganism, Reimagining Salutogenesis through Posthuman Activism. I work predominantly in the field of planetary health. For anyone who is not familiar with this concept, as I'm sure most of you are, planetary health refers to the health of humanity and the natural systems of which we are part. So it's a reimagining of the way in which we approach public health. We're calling this the sister discipline, the second form of public health, a more holistic and natural conceptualization of health and what it means to people to be part of an interplanetary health system. We understand that there is a dependency between the people who live on the planet and the planet itself. And we can conceptualize this in two basic assumptions. Firstly, that in order to have human health, we need to have the continued availability of natural resources. That includes non-human animals, it includes habitats, it includes a food system, atmospheric conditions, and of course, the wider climate. In order for the Earth to survive, it requires its custodians to be responsible and to use those resources in a responsible fashion. This is naturally something that we actually don't do, and this is the reason that veganism plays so well into what I'm going to talk about today. Last year, 2019, we convened in Rotary, New Zealand for the World Conference on Health Promotion, and one of the conference legacy documents was the Rotary Statement. We took inspiration from the indigenous peoples of New Zealand, the Maori, and we consulted with local iwis throughout the country to form this document, which was based around the idea, the Maori conception of waiora, the interconnections between human health and natural environments. People have been thinking about these things decades before Western academics came up with these brilliant ideas. And so we took a lot of inspiration from what the indigenous and Aboriginal peoples of the South Pacific wanted to get across to us. The four basic strands of the Rotary Statement were as follows: that health equity should be taken from a life course approach. It happens within and between countries, within and between generations. Health and planetary health is dependent upon those habitats in which humans live being inclusive, safe, and conducive to the continued health and sustainability of all people and ecosystems. And that in order to achieve those things, we have to design effective and fair climate change adaptation strategies. Simply mitigating climate change or simply adapting climate change is not enough. We have to do a bit of both. And finally, that in order to do that, we need to build collaborative, effective and accountable governance processes to promote health for planetary health. So this document is actually really nicely written. I would have a Google of it, read it if you want to, but it really values Aboriginal and Indigenous voices in taking the world forward towards planetary health. Our third strand of our theoretical basis of this project is salutogenesis. So my background really is more in health sociology. Salutogenesis is core construct in that area. Salutogenesis, the sociological understanding of the origins of health and well-being by Aaron Antonovsky in the 1970s, who wrote in his book, Health, Stress and Well-being. Antonovsky conceptualized of two approaches to health and disease. Firstly, the pathogenic model, which is followed in the dominant Western medical discourses, that we achieve well-being simply by identifying, treating and managing disease. Health is actually the absence of disease. Anybody that knows the WHO definition of health knows that that is not the case. However, it is what we tend to do in medicine in the 21st century all across the world. Antonovsky thought of something better. I had this idea of salutogenesis, that we create health through creating the conditions necessary to achieve it. This is far more popular in health promotion. We tend to take a salutogenic approach in public health where we can. Generally, public health is also vastly underfunded in comparison to clinical care. So what we generally see is a dichotomy in health. Clinicians will use the pathogenic model, public health practitioners will tend to use the salutogenic model, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Antonovsky said that in order to achieve salutogenesis, we must have sense of coherence. He called this was his sort of formula for how we empower people to achieve health for themselves and for those around them. In order to create health, Antonovsky says we need three things. We need comprehensibility. People need to be able to understand what health is. They need to be able to make sense and interpret overwhelming health challenges. They need to be manageable. People need to have a sense that they can change their own health. They can achieve good health through their own actions or by working with others. And finally, that there needs to be a sense of meaningfulness. In order for people to achieve health, they have to be healthy, and they need to understand the value of being healthy. These three things, comprehensibility, manageability, and meaningfulness, since the 1970s have been used to address chronic health inequalities on a more micro scale. So we're talking about getting people to stop smoking or change their diets or drink less alcohol, that sort of thing. What if we took those ideas and we took them planetary? If we used Antonovsky's ideas about sense of coherence to achieve the outcomes of the Rotary Statement in order to therefore achieve planetary health? This is where posthuman activists come in. So I met with a group of other academics and scholars and sociologists from across the world over the last year, and we've been trying to think about how we might combine these various ideas using Antonovsky's conceptions of salutogenesis to create planetary health. And actually what we noticed is this is already happening. My doctoral thesis is about sustainable meat consumption and the sociological underpinnings of sustainable meat consumption. And when I was first thinking about who I wanted to approach to ask them about meat consumption, I thought, well, I'll go to the people that have already identified it's a problem. So my doctorate is not finished yet, is ethnography of working with food activists throughout the city of Birmingham in the UK. And what I realized is all of these discourses in media and government about what are we going to do as a society ignores the fact that actually these actions are already taking place. The process of planetary health via salutogenesis has already long started. We just don't talk about it and we just don't see it. It has no visibility. And I'm talking about food waste activists, people that take out inedible but out-of-date food from supermarkets and they repurpose it to feed vulnerable populations. This is obviously my group of particular interest. But it's not just them. What about urban growers, people who are returning those horrible toxic brownfield sites in the middle of our cities into nature? They're turning them into to community gardens or growing sites or agricultural sites. What about cycling advocates, the people who are trying to get our cars off the roads and get our cycles on the road instead, promoting physical health and well-being whilst also reducing our need for gas-guzzling vehicles? We've got protest activists demanding change, pressuring the legislatures to realise some of these demands on a wider scale. And of course, we've got researchers all across the UK innovating local solutions or sustainable solutions for those unsustainable planetary crises. And so what we see is that actually, rather than demanding change from legislature all the time, actually that process of planetary health has already started. And veganism fits into this beautifully. Vegans, we're people that use ethical consumerism predominantly to save non-human lives, but also, of course, by doing so, we decrease land use, water use, we promote biodiversity in our ecosystems, we reduce GHGs, and we improve our own health as we go. So actually, we're achieving planetary health simply by being vegan. This is something that we have missed off in our new project, and that's why I wanted to bring it to the forefront today to invite you to be part of it. I met with these other researchers and scholars over the last year, and we've formed a new project. It's called People, Planet, Health. We realized that posthuman activism creates that sense of coherence, and by doing so, it creates human health in the environment. By making those local actions comprehensible, manageable, and meaningful, people can achieve health and environment, which in turn creates planetary health. And so we see that actually posthuman activism, those local solutions, are slowly changing the world, but we need to give them greater voice and visibility, if only because most of the time we don't even know that they exist. People, Planet, Health seeks to give those groups voice and visibility. And so we invite contributions from groups and individuals who do these three basic things. If you are involved in creating sustainability, you do something. It doesn't matter what it is. You're doing something to try and change the world. You're trying to improve health, environment, social justice, sustainability in some way. We want to hear all about it. We also want to hear from people who are involving others. So if you're giving local people a voice in changing their world and making it a better place, we want to hear from you. And thirdly, you're making a difference. It doesn't have to be numbers. It doesn't have to be statistics. If local activists, posthuman activists, feel that they are making a difference, we don't need statistics to prove it. What we want to know is, what are you doing? And what impact do you think it has? What is the social human impact of your interventions? To achieve the collation of these stories, what we've done is created a website. It's www.peopleplannethealth.com. And what we're asking people to do is to submit their voice. In order to make a contribution to People, Planet, Health, very, very simple process. Go to the website. It's, there you go, peopleplannethealth.com. It's 8 simple questions. I think it's just, you know, your name, your organization, that sort of thing. And then we basically ask you, what are you doing? What effect is it having on people around you or on sustainable ecosystems? And what would you like the future of planetary health to be? What is your vision for that future of a healthy world in which people thrive? The process has been designed by an international group of scholars, and it's then been approved by a sounding board of young activists. So we've invited activists from around the world, across continents, and we've tried to make sure to get representation from other nations outside of the Western world, to include voices from everywhere, to make sure that this is a process that speaks to everyone. When you submit your voice, we will then share your vision. So we put these live on the website, and again, I would encourage you to go and have a look at, we've only got 3 on there so far. This was launched only a few weeks ago. We share those submissions live to the rest of the world. The whole purpose of this project is an international public health knowledge exchange program. We want to give global visibility and put on the stage, the global stage, those local innovations which are really changing our world for the better, but nobody would know about them otherwise. This was launched formally by the World Health Organization last month in July, and actually that's probably what I want to move on to next. So this project was funded by Lucerne University of Arts and Sciences in Switzerland, with support from the University of Nottingham and National University of Ireland at Galway. This was then taken on board by the International Union of Health Promotion and Education, based in Canada, and then formally adopted by the World Health Organization in June of this year. And so what the WHO have agreed to do is listen to the outputs of this program. What will happen to those submissions, ideally sometime next year, is that they will be collated via natural language processing and Wordles to create a basic document that outlines these are the amazing things people are doing all over the world to create sustainable development. What then happens is we will invite those people, the people that submitted, to form a global strategy group to write a position paper to inform a new global strategy on health promotion. We have an agreement with the World Health Organization whereby that position paper will then serve as the lay contribution to the development of the new WHO Global Strategy on Health Promotion, which will be ratified at World Health Assembly in 2022. The process was initiated by Dr. Rüdiger Kresch, the Director of Health Promotion at the WHO, in a formal launch event last month. And we've got some good organisations on board. As much as I don't want to overpower the local voices, we felt that by getting these large partners on board this programme, it might give some credibility and greater voice to these local organisations that are doing such amazing things, but otherwise you might never hear of them. And so this, in my final few minutes, this is where I invite you to be part of People, Planet, Health. Veganism is planetary health. You cannot separate the two. Planetary health is all about creating a sustainable world for sustainable people, and sustainable people to be custodians of a sustainable planet, because we understand the connection between the two. If we go back to that basic definition I used at the beginning, the health of humanity and the natural systems of which we take part, veganism is absolutely planetary health. We're improving our own health by being vegan, but we're doing so on a population approach. Today, we've already heard about the intersectionality that relates to veganism, and how veganism is helping to mitigate existing health inequalities. It's also part of being a global citizen. We understand that health is a global process, and as vegans, we want to decrease land use, decrease water scarcity, decrease greenhouse gas emissions by using food more efficiently. We understand that non-human animals have needs, and that we cannot negotiate or violate those needs. And that as part of an ecosystem, if we want to sustain human health, we have to respect the health of other animals and the health of our planet. And we do so through ethical consumerism. And finally, sadly, we understand that in order to achieve anthropocentrism, and in order to achieve non-vegan diets, there must be an element of violence. Anthroparchy is inherent in the food system. Vegans reject that anthroparchy, and so we understand that if we want to create a sustainable world in which we as humans thrive, we have to ensure conditions for a thriving world of non-human actors as well. So we understand that there are interspecies interactions, and that we have a natural codependency with other species and the planet that we inhabit together. What I'd like you to do, and what I'd like to invite you to do in my last 30 seconds or so, is that I call on you to contribute to People, Planet, Health. Whatever you are doing. Vegans deprivilege individual human desire and need for the wider benefits of non-human animals and our natural ecosystems. Therefore, veganism is planetary health. We invite you to be part of that process of getting our ideas as vegans filtered through to the World Health Organization and into international health policy in 2022. Please tell us, go to our website and tell us what it's like to be vegan, how you transitioned to it, how you've supported others, how you've promoted veganism, the difficulties that you've faced, what you imagine a vegan future to look like. how you have been individually responding to structural anthroparchy. What have you been doing? Those ethical consumerist choices, what have you faced? How have you negotiated them? How have you worked with others? Tell us about your protests, your demonstrations, your lobbying, your research, your events, everything. We want to know what vegans are doing and why they're doing it. And finally, at an institutional level, how you as vegan sociologists, as academics, as people of power, how you are influencing change in the system. Whatever you are doing, it has value to the rest of the world, and we want the World Health Organization to share it with everybody. So I would encourage you, please be part of this, whether you're doing vegan research, vegan healthcare, education, vegan childhood, anything. It's all vegan sociology and it's all planetary health. Thank you for listening. And again, I'd like to welcome any questions that you have.